Emma. Okay, hi. How are you? Long time no see. Although actually maybe I posted a video last weekend, I can't remember. Yeah, hi, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. First things first, how you doing? I'm doing okay. Oh, I've just realised I didn't light the candle. This candle is supposed to be lit. I'm not getting back up to do it, I'm sorry. I hope you like the lighting. I'm not sure if this needs to be warmer. I think this one's the best one. We're gonna leave it how it is. The lighting's definitely gonna change. It's about 5 o'clock, so this is when it starts to get dark. Listen, some people have jobs, and some people leave those jobs at 2 o'clock, and some people are depressed in the afternoon. Yeah. Anyway, I'm filming this video now. Also, I'm not really, I don't know, I feel like the vibes are slightly off. Oh, that was hot. I feel like the vibes are slightly off. I don't know, I'm just in a weird mood, and I don't feel like I'm in the perfect mood to make a video, but also this video is so past due. I've been needing to make this video for the past 10 days. I think it's the 11th now. And I really need to get around to filming this video because it is now the 11th of November. And I really need to film my October wrap up, which is what we're doing, by the way. We're going to talk about all the books that I read in October. As I say, I'm feeling a little weird, and I don't know, I just don't feel like I'm in the right mood to be filming a video. But I really want to do this because I'm not going to have much time to do it in the upcoming days. So hopefully you like the light changing colour in the background, and we've got, what's your name again? Balthazar in the background. Also, in my last book video, we had Fred the Fox. Today we have Hetty the Hedgehog. I'll give Hetty a little close-up. I love my mugs. It is a problem, but I love them. Still talking to my therapist about it. Let's jump right into this video. It's not going to be a very long one. I only read 6 books / 7 in October, which really isn't that many for me. I've had a very slow reading year. Yeah, I've just not read as many books this year. I was comparing to how many books I read in October last year, and last year I read 13 books. 13 books in October. Definitely not the case this year. Oh, and again, I have to say it. I have to, otherwise it's not a Luca video if I don't. The focus is probably going to go in and out. I apologise. There's nothing I can do about it. I've looked it up. I think it is a problem with me and not with the camera. Here we go. So I have my handy dandy list to look at to remind myself of what I read, because I have The Memory of a Goldfish and I can't remember what I read. It might be slightly repetitive because I did mention some of these books in my video recommending sort of like spooky, Halloween-y, October-y books to read. So I did read some of those books that I mentioned in that video. So it might be slightly repetitive, but I'm just being honest. These are the books that I've read. Here we go. First book that I read in October was, in fact, a reread. I reread The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. So just a quick rerun. Ex-Hex is a witchy rom-com. It follows our main character Vivian, or Vivi. It starts with Vivi as a young witch, and she's going through this breakup and it's really rough, and sort of like as a joke with her cousin, she decides to hex or curse her ex. That's how you join them, that's how the story starts, and then I think it's about 10-ish years later the two are reunited. She very innocently cursed him, so she doesn't actually realise that it worked, and it's only when they're reunited that she realises that it did actually work, and he is now in terrible danger, and so they sort of have to work together to fix what she's done. That's essentially what it is. It's in a very, very Halloween-y setting in this little cute, cozy town. It's very sort of hallmark Halloween-y vibes. It's very light-hearted and cozy and silly, definitely not to be taken too seriously. I think the plot is very weak. It has a lot of flaws, it's definitely not a perfect book. I enjoyed it only because it has a talking cat and it has pumpkins and it has autumn leaves, and it's cozy, and it is definitely the perfect read for that time of year, so that's why I really liked it. I really wish that I could move to Penhallow. I think it would be wonderful. And I also liked the family dynamics. I really liked her relationship with her cousin. It was an easy read and it's very, very quick to go through. I thought the audiobook was quite fun. The only thing that I didn't like, and I mentioned this in the other video, is that there are a lot of smut scenes. And it was painful. It was uncomfortable, but that might be a personal thing. Maybe if you like smut, then you will love this book. I personally I shrivel up a little bit. I feel uncomfortable. I'm not good with the smut scenes, especially the dirty talk. So not my jam, but I enjoy the rest. I enjoy the vibes and stuff. It's by no means an incredible book, but it's fun, silly, light-hearted, and I'm just repeating myself, but it's just a good book for this time of year. So I reread that. It was really fun. It was definitely not as good as the first time round, and I definitely found the flaws of the book a lot more noticeable the second time round. But, you know, it was fine. So that was the first book that I read. The second book that I moved on to was, I have it with me, hang on. The second book that I read in October was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I really, really loved it. Actually, I should let you know how many stars I gave to each of these books. So for the XX I gave 3 stars, and then for The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches I gave 4 stars. It's definitely a new favourite. If you liked The House in the Cerulean Sea, pick this up. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else. If you liked that book, then you will love this. All of the wonderful things about The House in the Cerulean Sea are also in this book. It's a very similar sort of plot. It's just that it includes witches. So to give you a quick rundown, I always forget her name. There we go. The main protagonist is Mika Moon. She is a witch in Britain. And in Britain, for some reason, witches are a bad thing because they're different, so people are scared of them. So she has to keep her witchiness very secret. It's also a bad thing for witches to all be reunited in one place at one time. So witches are never ever together. They're very lonely. They have to lead very solitary lives. They're always hiding a part of their identity, and it's just a very solitary, lonely way of living. That's the kind of setup that you have. It's Britain, witches exist, but they're frowned upon, I guess. Mika Moon is just very lonely. She's never settled in one place. She's never had somewhere that she can really call home, and she's never formed really strong connection with someone else because she has to hide who she is, or she's constantly moving around. Out of the blue, she's contacted by someone who asks for her to come and fill a position in this house taking care of 3 young witches, which she's like, what the hell? How does this person know that I'm a witch? And why are these 3 young witches together? She's just generally curious. She sees a request and she's like, okay. So she decides to go check it out. She does turn up to the house. She does end up accepting this position, and the story sort of goes from there. And all you really need to know is that it is extremely wholesome. It has the found family vibes. It's super sweet. It's funny. And it just feels like a big warm hug. I really like the plot. Not a lot really happens, but I don't think that that's a problem. I think it's really nice to just sit down to this book with a blanket and a cup of tea and just settle in and just get those comforting, warm feelings from the book. It's really, really sweet. I really liked all of the characters. I really liked Mika Moon. I liked it. It was just very sweet and wholesome. She has a golden retriever, so if you like dogs, there's a dog in this book. The house was gorgeous. So I loved sort of imagining this house and imagining all of these characters in the house. There's also a bit of romance. Yeah, and also there's a twist that I definitely don't think you'll see coming. I didn't see it coming. I don't know why. I think it's just because I didn't really expect to see it in this sort of book. But there is a twist that I was kind of like, you got me there. Okay, go off. I see you. So yeah, that was the second book that I read in October. If you don't have a tea, pause this and go grab one. Delightful. Alright, the third book that I read was The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel to The X-Hex. I found out as I was rereading The X-Hex that the sequel had come out. I wasn't even aware that there was going to be a second book, but I got really excited because I was so in the mood for an audiobook that was just really easy to listen to, and that was definitely the case for The X-Hex, and so I saw this and I was like, perfect, I know what I'm going to read. I was in the mood for cozy vibes. I was ready to return to Penhallow, and so I was really excited when I saw the audiobook, so I pretty much immediately picked it up. This time we're following Vivi's cousin, who is called, let me tell you because I really can't remember. Her name is Gwyn. In this one, we're following Gwyn. I feel like a lot of people, when they read The X-Hex, they really, really loved Vivi's cousin. Well, she's the main character of this one, and the romance is with a different... what are they called? Oh my gosh, I've been saying returning to Penhallow, but the village isn't called Penhallow. The town is called Graves Glen. The romantic interest is called Penhallow. I'm sorry, I got confused. I enjoyed this book more than the first one. I still by no means think that these are like incredible books. They're not like the best books that I've ever read, but they're just so fun and wholesome and easy to go through. They're great forms of escapism, and I would highly recommend if you just want something really lighthearted. And I mean, the audiobook was so quick to go through, and as I say, I enjoyed this one more than the previous book because I feel like the plot was also better. I was so much more invested. I really liked Gwyn's relationship with her, I think she calls them her baby witches. I thought that was really, really fun. I really liked the dynamic between the two. I liked the banter. There was a little bit less of the smut scenes, which was a very big plus for me. I'd highly recommend it. I should probably give you a little bit of an idea about what it's about. So Gwyn is just going about her day-to-day life. She's still in Graves Glen. She's running the shop. Her mum is away on a trip to Egypt or something like that, I think. And Vivi is about to leave for her honeymoon, and Oktoberfest, or whatever it is that they call it, is just around the corner. So she's preparing for that, she's going about her day-to-day life, she's having a great time. And then it is interrupted when a certain Wells Penhallow, I can't remember what his like full name is, it's like Llewellyn or something. Wells Penhallow bursts her bubble. He opens a shop opposite her and sort of becomes her rival. Yeah, there's this conflict going on between them where there's like this competition for who has the best shop, who has the most clients, all of that sort of going on. And then as that's sort of going on, there's also this thing of Gwen losing or having like issues with her magic. Eventually there's just something going on. You know, they are noticing weird things. They sort of go and investigate what's happening together. I feel like I'm not doing a very good job at describing these books, but I'm doing my best. So yeah, that's sort of what happens in the sequel. I, again, really enjoyed it. Yeah, they're just fun little witchy rom-coms filled to the brim with cozy autumn energy and just entertaining characters. Silly and lighthearted, so I would recommend you go pick that one up if that's what you're sort of into. The fourth book I read was Wrong Place, Wrong Time, and I've now got a big smile on my face because this was such a good book. I talked about this book in my previous book video and I talked about it in depth, so I should probably keep it quite brief, but I loved this book. It's day 0 and Jen is patiently waiting for her son Todd. She's looking out her window and she's waiting for him to come home. It's almost midnight, it's almost Halloween, and yeah, she's just doing that motherly thing of sort of anxiously waiting up for her child to get home. She finally sees him, he's coming up the driveway and she's feeling relief because her son is coming home when she suddenly witnesses her son commit a murder. Dun dun dun. What the hell? Her witnessing this changes her whole life, and I mean this literally. It changes her whole life. From there on, it's sort of a story about sort of the butterfly effect. It very much explores all of the decisions, conversations, actions that led up to this moment where her son would commit murder. I'm really sorry if anything has changed. I had to quickly free up some space on my camera because I didn't have any left, so I'm sorry if anything has changed. Hopefully it hasn't changed too much and it isn't too distracting. But I was saying that, what was I saying? Good question. I was saying that the unique thing about this thriller is the fact that it is told in reverse, as in the way that Jen is able to sort of investigate and get clues and find out what is going on is because every day she wakes up in the past. Sometimes it's the day before, sometimes it's 2 days before, sometimes it's 3 days before, sometimes it's weeks before, and it keeps just happening every time she goes to sleep. She wakes up in the past, and so she revisits old conversations that she's had, she revisits old places that she's been and because she's able to keep waking up and keep just going in the past, instead of doing what she would usually do, which is go to work or whatever it is, she will try and sort of investigate. So she keeps going to places where she thinks her son will be, or to places where she thinks she might find clues, or to places where she might have missed something because in real time she'd been at work, or she'd been at the gym, or she'd been doing something else. And so she essentially makes different decisions from the ones that she made the first time around, and it leads her to find out so much more about her family and about what was happening and all of these things that she was never aware of because she wasn't looking for them. So yeah, I just thought it was so good. I really liked all of the twists. I thought it was told exceptionally. It's so good. Like, just read the first chapter, and if you're not convinced about, and if the first chapter doesn't convince you, I would be very surprised. The audiobook is excellent. I would highly recommend it. And even my friend Jeremy went and read the whole book once I talked about it in my last video. He went and read it in a day. So it is really good. It's so easy to read, so easy to, a lot of it takes place in October, so it also has that vibe about it. And yeah, it was just, I don't find a lot of thrillers that I really love anymore, but this one was a 5-star. It was so good. I can't recommend it enough. So definitely go check it out. Next one. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job in this video. I'm sorry. The next book that I read was The Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda. I've read a couple of books by her now. Yeah, I've noticed that there's definitely a pattern with her writing. Every single time that I've read one of her books, there have been these different elements in every single one of them. So there's always a female character who usually has some sort of struggle. It's either like a mental struggle, or she's got like a difficult past, or she's in a difficult situation now, or there's always some sort of struggle going on. The other thing that I've also noticed is that it's always in a very small town. It's always small town vibes, small town murder mystery or whatever. So if you like that, she has them in all of her books. All of the characters are acquainted, and it's always got sort of like a dark feel to it. There's always something that just doesn't feel right about the place, or it feels very cold and just unwelcoming. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that's the feel that I've got. Also, the main female character always lives in this sort of isolated home where she's often alone. All of her books have been a very, very slow burn that eventually pick up in the end. If that sounds like something that you would enjoy, definitely give Megan Miranda a try. Personally, I feel like her books are fine, but I don't think that she's ever going to be like a favourite author. And I'm not sure I'm going to try any of her other books. I should probably say what this one is about first before I get into all of that. So The Last to Vanish is Megan Miranda's most recent release. Our main female character, I can't remember her name, who lives in this hotel right at like the beginning of this mountain trail. Like the hotel is situated right next to the beginning of this mountain trail. Where she lives has become extremely renowned because a lot of people have disappeared from there. It started with one specific group, and then after that it's just kept happening. It doesn't sound like the place to be. One day a man arrives, and he happens to be the brother of the latest missing person, and he's sort of come to investigate, and this has a domino effect on the events that sort of follow, and she starts finding out a lot of things and a lot of secrets. That's essentially what happens. It is very, very slow, to the point where it's quite boring. There seem to be a lot of very coincidental conveniences, such as she just happens to borrow someone's car and happens to find these keys and happens to recognize that one of the keys is for this locker in this place, and then she goes there and the person happens to not recognize her and happens to not have like a record of who these lockers are rented out to. It's like a whole thing. You sort of had to suspend your belief. Yeah, it was an okay book. A lot of Megan Miranda's books for me, my enjoyment heavily depends on the quality of the audiobook. I tried reading The Perfect Stranger recently, and I couldn't even get halfway through it. The audiobook just really didn't work for me. And if I didn't have the audiobook for one of her books, then there's no way that I would ever be able to finish it. I essentially just like listening to her audiobooks when I'm doing chores or I'm driving. It's a good thing to sort of have on in the background. Sometimes they're just convenient. If you can't find any other audiobooks to listen to, they work. They're not the worst. They pass the time. So that's what her books sort of are for me. They're a backup plan if I don't have an audiobook on the go that I'm excited about, or if I can't find anything else to read, then her books sort of work really well in those cases. But other than that, they're never going to be favourites, and I'm never going to rave about them. Although, never say never, but I highly doubt that I'm ever going to find a book by her that I really, really, really love. Next one I read. Ooh, this is probably going to make it to one of my worst books that I've read this year, unfortunately. And it might be surprising because I raved about it. Or, I didn't rave about it, but I really hyped it up in a different book. Oh, I can't talk. I really hyped this book up in a different video, and it ended up being really, really disappointing. If you can hear that in the background, I'm sorry, there's a leaf blower going on at the moment. Why someone is deciding to use their leaf blower when it is 6 o'clock? I have no clue, but there you go. That's what happens when you live in the city. The book I'm talking about, unfortunately, is Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. I was so excited about this book. So excited to pick it up and finally read. This was my first ever Agatha Christie. I am told that this is her worst. So there's hope. I will try some of her other books and hopefully I'll enjoy them more. I'm so disappointed. So disappointed. I was so looking forward to this. I think I gave it 2 stars, but I think that's really, oh no I didn't. I gave it 1 star. I gave it 1 star. That's how bad this was. I have the physical book, but I listened to the audiobook as well because there is no way that I could have finished this through the physical book. This was terrible and I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy. I really thought that this one would be perfect, but I can't think of a single redeeming quality for this book. Harsh, I know. For one, it is incredibly slow and boring, and not a single character has a distinct voice. You have to sort of sit through Poirot interviewing all of these different people who just spout the exact same dialogue. It's just a repetition of the exact same conversation, just over and over and over again. And there's like, sometimes there's a few details that are added, but it doesn't have an overall importance to the mystery. It's just that there are like a couple of things that change, but it's essentially the exact same dialogue every single time. And it is so tedious. The exact same theories are repeated, and they all sort of think that some insane person must have committed the murder. They all think that it could be a sexually motivated crime, which I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it does. But I just felt that it was really difficult to read, especially because the victim is a 13-year-old girl. And there's even a point where Poirot asks Mrs. Oliver if she thought this 13-year-old girl was sexy. Poirot repeats all of the same questions and the conversations could literally just have been copied and pasted. It was tedious, it was repetitive, the plot was meandering, and you can sort of feel throughout the whole book that the author clearly has this sort of social agenda. The characters were bland and Poirot just kept on going on these really long rants that didn't even seem relative to the crime and the investigation. Really disappointing. So there you go. That was Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. And we put that one down and we move on. Let's end on a more positive note. The last book that I read, I didn't actually finish this in October, but I want to include it because I started reading it in October, and I finished it in November, but I feel like it's more appropriate for October and I feel like it's a better recommendation for October, so I'm going to include it. It will count towards my November wrap up. That book is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Okay, so Cackle is the story of our main character Annie, who's just gone through this really rough breakup. She was with her ex-partner for over 10 years and she's really going through it. When we meet Annie, she's just gotten through this breakup and she is about to move away to this really small town where she has been offered a teaching position in a high school, I believe. Annie is in this really bad place. She's lost, heartbroken, defeated, doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what to do with herself. We sort of follow her as she meets this other character, Sophie, and we watch their friendship and we watch it blossom and we watch them form a really good friendship together. We watch their relationship as it grows. This book is about heartbreak, mourning a chapter of your life and moving on to the next. It's about self-discovery, figuring out who you are as an individual. It's about finding your identity, your passions, your interests, and just what makes you you. It's about discovering your identity, realizing that your happiness should solely depend on you and not on someone else. And all of those subjects are sort of explored with the added witchy element. It's really cozy and whimsical. There's a very little plot though. It is definitely like a slow read. It's not action-packed, definitely, and there's, as I say, very little plot. It's also a little weird, if I'm honest. I sometimes got like sort of Coraline vibes, like the other mother from Coraline. Often when Sophie came onto the scene, I felt a little bit creeped out by her. She gave me sort of toxic friend vibes, and she sometimes felt a little bit intense, but overall I know that she was a good person and that she was being a really good friend and that she was really helpful to Annie in sort of mourning and getting over this breakup. But I just found her a little intense. Annie can be a really frustrating character because you sort of see her make a lot of really stupid decisions and silly mistakes. But I think the reason that she's so frustrating is because we've all sort of been through a breakup or a really bad breakup at some point, and we've all made the sort of same silly mistakes, and we've all had that same self-doubt, and we've maybe done a few things that we're not proud of and that are slightly embarrassing. And so seeing her do those same mistakes was frustrating because you've been through it and you know better now. But the thing is, she works out in the end, and that's really what matters, is that she figures it out. I thought that this book was really cozy and sweet. I really liked the friendly spiders in it. I thought that was a really sweet touch. And I'm itching my hair. I especially loved the descriptions of food and smells. Delightful. Lovely. And I also really like the small town vibes. It just had a like slightly strange element to it that I can't put my finger on. As I say, it's very whimsy, it's autumny, it has witches, and it's sort of a feminist novel about heartbreak. Wasn't a personal favourite, but I would still recommend it, definitely. So there you go. Those are all of the books that I read in October, and this month is off to a strong start. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm very much looking forward to my November wrap up. I think I will be a lot more excited about the books that I'm going to be talking about. I'm sorry if my energy is a bit low in this video. I think I'm just tired. I don't know. It's the end of the week. I look forward to making another book video where I'm a little bit more like, woohoo. If you have any ideas for videos that you would like to see, definitely let me know. And thank you so much for watching this video if you've watched it all the way through. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye!